Hey y'all, my name is Taylor. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. So today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in January, the first month of 2024. And I'll have to say, it was a slow reading month for me. I've talked to a couple other people who have felt the same way, so I'm glad I'm not alone. But yeah, I think this video will be fairly short unless I get particularly long-winded. So I wanted to get into a little bit of housekeeping things before I get to the actual review part of the video. So I've seen a few people, a few booktubers post their content plans, and I'm always kind of hesitant to do that because while I do have plans, my plans often get changed because I have an infant and things happen, especially with health. So yeah, I did want to give you an idea of what I have planned, just so you can kind of know hopefully what to expect. Yeah, so I don't know if you've noticed, I was able to post 2 videos per week in January, which is the first time I think I've ever been able to do that on my channel. I was very dedicated in trying to get that happening and get the habit of doing it, and so I'm pretty proud of myself. But yeah, I've been on BookTube. It'll be 2 years in June this year, so yeah, I've never actually done 2 per week, so I'm so excited I was able to do that. So I don't know if it'll continue, but I'm gonna try. So some of my video ideas, I have my January wrap-up, which is this one. I'm going to be doing Oshina's Christian romance tag. I'm going to be doing that, which looks really fun and very appropriate for Valentine's Day. I'm doing reading sprints on the 9th at 9 with my lovely co-host for the Once Upon a February readathon. So all of us, all 6 of us, should be, if I can get the technology to work, trying to figure that out now. I've done a live once a while ago. That was solo, and I've never done one so with other people, much less 6 people. So trying to figure that out, so stay tuned for that. I'm also planning on doing the birthday book tag, since February is my birthday month, and I thought that would be a fun way to celebrate, a little bit different. And I'm also planning to interview an author. So Christy A. Cole, who is also one of my co-hosts for Once Upon a February, her first book, her debut novel, released end of last month. I'm currently reading it, but I'm really having a good time. It's just taking me a little while because I take longer to read physically. But I am going to be interviewing her about the writing process, her book, future plans, that type of thing. And I plan on, I think I'm going to make a community tab post on my channel asking for questions for that. But if you have questions you'd like to ask her, feel free to leave them below in the comments. But yeah, I'll be asking her questions, so that video of our interview should be coming out in February. I also have another tag planned because Lindsay from BFCG, she tagged me in the fairy tale retellings tag, and that was perfect timing considering my readathon is fairy tale themed. It's going all this month of February, so I was super excited she tagged me, so I have that planned for February. I plan on doing possibly a birthday vlog. Vlogs are pretty hard, just because the craziness of having a baby and trying to do all that and have something interesting to post. So we'll see. If not, I may just do a birthday book haul, or maybe a combination of the 2. I don't know. So that one's kind of up in the air. And then I do plan on sharing with y'all my bookshelf. I have 2. A bookshelf tour, and then my March TBR. So yeah, that's the schedule. Still 2 videos per week, so hopefully I can still accomplish that, so stay tuned. But those are my plans. So last thing I wanted to mention is I'm going to start doing something new with my YouTube reviews. I had started doing them last year, I think like in August or September, for my written reviews like Goodreads, Storygraph, that type of thing. I want to include Christian faith ratings in my reviews, and that is because I primarily read Christian fiction, or clean fiction as well, but a lot of what I read is Christian. And I've noticed that there is really a large spectrum of what it means to be a Christian fiction book. You can be more towards the clean fiction side, kind of brushing the line, maybe going past the line in some cases. And then you have, you know, kind of everyday gentle faith, it's called. And then you have like a little bit more faith, and then you have like what I call like top tier, my, you know, what I want to see in Christian books in some cases. So, yeah, so I wanted to share with you my rating system. This is the brainchild of Lou over Christian Faith and Fiction. I will link her channel below, and I will find her original video with her rating system in it. I took a lot of inspiration from her. It's largely the same as hers, just maybe a little bit tweaked. But I use a 0 to 3 rating scale for my Christian rating system. 0 means that it's clean. It's not necessarily Christian. It may have been written by a Christian author, but it's not marketed as Christian. But it's, I would say, fairly Christian friendly. There's not really too much in there, maybe like a couple of things that would kind of be questionable, but they're not marketed towards a Christian audience, so I kind of give it a little bit more slack. And 1 is, it is a Christian book, marketed as Christian fiction, but it's very light faith. There may be some problematic things in there as far as like the Christian walk and like what we're called to do by God. There may be a couple of things that are kind of like, I don't know if that should be in there. Yeah, so that's level 1. Level 2 is kind of middle of the road. Like there's some good balance of Christian faith content. There's, you know, the characters let God guide them to a certain extent. Faith is talked about. They go to church. They pray. So like solid Christian faith content. There could be a couple of questionable things in there as well, but you know, kind of not as severe possibly. And then level 3 is top tier. Like the faith was phenomenal. The characters consistently prayed. They consistently asked the Lord for help, or considered what they should do as a Christian in certain circumstances. The book even includes scripture in it, like actual quotations of scripture. So that is like cream of the crop, like good Christian faith content in it. In my written reviews, at least, I kind of put my rating, and then I put like a little, I've started to put like a little blurb like next to like clean fiction, or like there was problematic elements of this, you know, that type of thing, where I kind of explained my rating a little bit. But I did want to kind of explain on here as well, so that you know what I mean whenever I tell you a faith rating as well. So it's going to be my personal enjoyment rating, and then my Christian faith rating as far as like the level of Christian faith in a book. So yeah, I'm going to try and do that. I did see Lou had a rating, a tier ranking system for the books that she read for the entire year, and I thought I was going to do that, but just it's a lot of back end work that I just don't have time for right now. But I do plan on doing it for 2024. It is on the docket. Just right now is not a good time, and I wasn't doing Christian faith ratings all of last year, so I'd have to like try and remember. So instead of trying to do that, I'll just save it for next year. So that is in the works for probably December or January. Maybe I'll do a version of Bookmas, probably not like the full-blown Bookmas, but anyways, just wanted to share that. Yeah, so let's get into what I actually read after I've talked for like 12 minutes. Let's get into the actual point of this video, which is what I read in January. The first book I want to talk about is Better Watch Out by Natalie Walters, and it is it's kind of described as a Christmas meets romantic suspense book, and you don't really see that combination much. So I was really intrigued, and a lot of people had said really great things about it. So I got it on Kindle Unlimited, if I can talk. And I think this is the book that kind of set me back as far as like what my schedule for reading, because it took me forever to read this book. And it's no fault of the books. It's purely, it takes me a long time to physically read right now. I just don't have the time to sit down and read. So that just pushed everything back. But anyways, I really did enjoy this book. I rated it 4 stars. It's really cute. It's a perfect Christmas read. I could probably reread it again. I could see myself doing that in the Christmas season again. Very atmospheric. So what it's about Franny Frost. She is she goes to New York City at the time of Christmas to surprise her boyfriend, and she gets there and she has this bucket list. She wants to knock off some things she's always wanted to do at Christmas time in New York. It's like the place she's always wanted to go. And she gets there and her boyfriend breaks up with her. She missed all the signs that their relationship was truly over. He has somebody else. So she's stuck in New York by herself at Christmas time with all this money she spent that was pretty pricey. And yeah, so she is, left alone. And her brother is very, he's with the FBI or the CIA or something, I forget, but I think it's the FBI. He's very concerned for her safety as a single woman in New York City. I don't blame him. And so he knows this guy who works in a protection agency. His name's Andrew, and so he's like, hey, can you help my sister get to the airport? So Andrew is working on a case where the person he's supposed to be protecting looks extremely like Franny, and so their identities get mistaken, and so Franny's now the target of these bad guys. And so they end up knocking off some of this stuff on her bucket list. So it's all about that, and then there's a romance that happens. And I was kind of worried about like insta-lovey type romance, but I think it was pretty well done. Like, it happened in a short amount of time, but I think it was pretty believable, and not like ick, because she literally just got done with a relationship, but the relationship was really over with a long time ago. She just didn't want to see it. So I really enjoyed it. There was a part that kind of irked me a little bit, like lying by omission by Andrew. He like asked her brother, like, should I tell her the real reason why I'm hanging out with her is to protect her from these bad guys that think she's my client? And the brother was like, no, she's in an emotional state right now. Like, she won't be able to handle it. And so Andrew goes along with it. He's like, I don't know about this, but okay. And I feel like, again, it's my personal thing. Like, just tell her. Like, the truth comes out. You should probably tell her. So, yeah, that's just a little thing. And then, as far as faith rating, I gave it a 1 out of 3. It is light, everyday faith. There are a few mentions of pop culture things that I think make it kind of more modern and realistic, but not necessarily Christian things that are mentioned. So examples are like Die Hard, Godfather. Those are pretty, like, I've never seen The Godfather, but Die Hard I saw a long time ago, and that's like, both of them are rated R. So, I mean, there's cussing and stuff. So, like, you get what I mean. Like, that's why it's rated as a 1. Part of the reason, it's just light faith. They talk about God and praying a little bit, but it's pretty light. So, anyways, let's see. The next one I want to talk about is Cold Pursuit by Nancy Mail. And Nancy Mail, this is my first book by her. She is a Christian thriller author. And yeah, I've really been wanting to read some more books that are Christian romantic suspense thriller type books. And so she is one of the name of the games for this. And I rated this book, I think it was 4 stars. Yeah, it's really immersive. It plunges you right into the storyline of what's happening. Like the very first chapter, you are in a life and death situation that kind of sets up the rest of the book. So it is about River Ryland and Tony St. Clair. They are FBI partners at the beginning of the book, and something happens, so they both decide to leave the FBI. They decide to set up a PI business, and so this is their first case, is what this book is about. So a woman comes in and she is wanting them to find her son who disappeared 4 years ago. He's a teen. He's like, you know, your quintessential good guy who, you know, he's a good guy. He doesn't really do anything like drugs, or like he's not into anything like that. So it's really mysterious why he disappeared. The police told her he just ran away. She's like, no, that's not him. That wouldn't have happened. There is no romance in this story, which is why I said it's a thriller, not romantic suspense, because there might be some possible hints of future romance between River and Tony in the future, because this is part of a series, this first book in a series, and I think the second one comes out soon or has already come out. I can't remember. There were some statements that I really can't remember right now, but there were some statements that I was like, I don't know about that. A little bit of things are kind of maybe not quite realistic. I don't know. Never been in this type of situation before, so this is just my guess. But anyways, so there are some content warnings for mental illness, particularly schizophrenia, and synesthesia, which is experiencing senses kind of cross, like if you see something, you can smell it, or if you hear something, you can see it in different colors. So there's also Alzheimer's. So yeah. There's that content in there, something to be aware of if that's something you want to avoid or be sensitive to. As far as a Christian faith rating, I gave it a 2 out of 3. So yeah, it was pretty good. Next book I want to talk about is Hope Between the Pages by Pepper Basham, and y'all, this book was really good. I really enjoyed my time with it. I buddy read this with Tammy over the Protagonist Pub. And this is a dual timeline book. There is a modern day timeline with Clara. She is working at her family's bookshop. It's like 100 years old. It's been family owned. And it's come into question, like, where is the deed? Do y'all actually own this bookshop? There's no proof y'all own it. And there's a new modern corporately owned bookshop that's kind of giving them some competition. And so it is, she's trying to find this bookshop. She's trying to find the deed to the bookshop. And along the way, she's uncovering some family secrets. The second timeline is the one set in the past. It's during the 1900s, kind of think like Downton Abbey type feels, because it's set at Biltmore. Ugh! I loved it. That's probably why I loved it as much as I did, because that was my favorite timeline out of all of them. Most of the time, it's going to be the historical timeline that's my favorite if it's compared to modern. But this element of Biltmore just kind of set it apart, because we got to see parts of Biltmore as a servant, because the other character, Sadie, she's a servant. You get to see, like, how it might have been to be a servant at Biltmore, like different parts of the America's castle that you might not necessarily have gone into right now as a modern guest. But yeah, so Sadie is a book maiden, and she's responsible for maintaining the 10,000 book library, which kudos to the Vanderbilts, especially George, for having such an importance in reading books and owning them. So yeah, anyways, so she kind of picks out books based on the reader's preferences. She matches them to guests, and the Vanderbilts, of course. And so a guest comes to Biltmore, and he notices her, which as servants, you know, you're kind of unseen. So it is their romance. And yeah, it's so good. I was listening to this on audiobook, and I actually bought it as I was listening to it because I wanted to own it, so I can go back and read it again later, because there are so many good quotes in this book. I mean, I'm talking like, they just kept happening, and I was like, that is such a good quote. That's such a good quote. Like, oh my goodness, I need to put this on a t-shirt. There was one about, it's not the C.S. Lewis quote, like, you're never too old for fairy tales or something. It's something similar to that, like the same heart behind it. I can't remember exactly what it was, because I didn't write them down as I was listening, which hence why I bought this book, to kind of do that later. But yeah, it was really good. The only thing, caveat I'll say about it is, kind of question me as whether I should give it a full 5 stars, but I just so enjoyed it. Pepper's books can be a little tiny bit more detailed as far as physical intimacy. Like, it doesn't like go into explicit detail, but kind of leading up to certain scenes is a little bit more detailed than I like. But I will say this particular book is not as detailed or made me as uncomfortable as some of her other books. So I will say that if you're sensitive to that, just be aware. As far as my faith content reading, I gave it a 2 out of 3. Last book I read for January is Veiled in Smoke by Jocelyn Green, and I read this as part of Tammy's book club. And yeah, I own this book, but I just had never picked it up before. It wasn't particularly calling my name, but I saw that Tammy's book club was going to read it, so I was like, I want to join in. I actually own it. I want to support Tammy and her new book club. So I did. I listened to the audiobook primarily, but this is about 2 sisters, Meg and Sylvie, and they have a father, Stephen, who was a part of the Civil War, and he came back changed. He had what they called back then soldier's heart, which is modern day called PTSD. I didn't even know they had a name for it way back then. I've heard of shell shock, but I've never heard of soldier's heart before. He was a part of Andersonville, which was a prisoner of war camp for Union soldiers that was owned by the Confederacy. And I never heard of it before, so that was interesting to hear about. And also, on the other side, Union had their own camp for Confederate prisoner of war soldiers, which I guess, if I thought about it, I guess I would know that, but I just never heard anything in particular about it. But anyways, so Stephen's dealing with some symptoms, pretty severe symptoms of PTSD, and so his daughters are trying to come to terms with their new father. Basically, he's a changed person. So this also centers around the Chicago fire. I'd heard about it, didn't really know that much detail about it, so that was really interesting as well to read about. Really quite devastating fire. And so yeah, it's the aftermath of that. They own a bookshop together. All 3 of them run a bookshop, and so everything they own gets destroyed. They're having to start afresh, and as part of the chaos of that fire happening, their father gets accused of murdering his best friend. He gets sent to an asylum, and it's the sisters trying to get him out. There's also a romance in here. Well, there's actually 2 of them. And yeah, so it is not your typical historical romance. I'd say there's a lot more emotional and hard-hitting stuff in this book. It deals a lot with some mental illness, like schizophrenia, dementia or Alzheimer's is in here as well. So yeah, it it was very interesting. I learned a lot. Parts are very difficult to read as far as people experiencing things that I have no doubt that Jocelyn Green researched very well, so it's probably pretty accurate. Like there were several asylum scenes where it went into detail about some of the treatment that was done to the prison. Well, I guess they were technically prisoners held against their will, but the patients, and yeah, it was just really horrible and so sad to read about, and yeah, I just really sad part of history, but very interesting to see how far we've come as far as like mental health treatment nowadays. There's some mystery component of trying to figure out what actually happened. Did their father actually kill his best friend? If not, who did it? How can they get him out? So there was that element of it too. And this book, I rated, I think it was, where's my rating? I rated it 4 stars. It didn't connect with me personally. Some of the situations they were in and some of the experiences they were having, I didn't personally connect to, but I can see at another time in my life, I very much could. It just didn't connect with me too personally, but it was very hard hitting. I'm glad I read it. It was very, very good. And I love Jocelyn Green's writing, and this is just another one to add to my list of favorites by her. And this has a faith rating of a 2 out of 3. Those are the books I read for January. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you read out of January, if you have any recommendations for me, and yeah, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.